and welcome to Small Business Exporting Entrepreneurs Experiences. The presentation today will be given by LaTaunya Darden, Small Business Specialist at the Export Import Bank of the United States, and David Hincapie, Lender Relations Specialist at the U.S. Small Business Administration. We'll be starting today with a conversation between LaTaunya Darden and a business owner who has been using EXIM's services. And at this time, I will turn it over to LaTaunya to say a few words and get us started.
Thank you for the introduction, Alexis. I'm so happy to be here for this second webinar that we have co-hosted together, but this time it is a little different. I am happy to have Joy A. Johnson with us today, who is a fairly new customer to EXIM, for her to share about how she actually started her business and her experiences of utilizing EXIM and other resources. I have been in my current role for about 9 years now, assisting minority and women-owned businesses access EXIM services and other resources. I am a part of a team of business development officers, and we assist or actually do the hand-holding for businesses who find it a little challenging to navigate the export process. So very happy to be here. And now I am going to start the conversation with Joy. Hello, Joy. How are you today? Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon.
Good afternoon, LaTaunya. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for having me.
You're quite welcome. You're quite welcome. So I'll just jump right into it. Many businesses are started as a result of a challenge or some type of adversity happening in their lives. And a lot of business owners felt that there was a lack of a product or service in the marketplace. Can you share with us if that was your experience and exactly what catapulted you to start your business?
Absolutely. I do agree with that statement. My business is really twofold. The first part of my business and really how my business got started, I'm a service provider. I'm a licensed esthetician and manicurist, and I've been so for the last 17 years. And so my business started off as serving the community and serving others. And for that business, I specifically wanted to focus on, as time went on, I decided I wanted to focus on the immunocompromised community. So those that have health realities such as diabetes, oncology, individuals, people that are fighting cancer, elderly people, new and nursing moms. I really wanted to kind of focus on segments of people that we all know. They may be in our family, they may be us, but they don't necessarily always feel seen when it comes to getting personal care services. And so that was the genesis of my business, was providing specialty services. So for instance, we provided diabetic pedicures. So I did additional training with other manufacturers and understanding how a diabetic, how their pedicures need to be performed and why it's different than someone that's a non-diabetic. And then over the years, my business has pivoted, partially due to the pandemic, into becoming a manufacturer. And so I still wanted to stay within that same vein of providing a product to, again, this unspoken community of people that we all know. And so I decided to develop Joy of Beauty, which is a diabetic-friendly body care line. And that portion of my business is what I've been able to utilize EXIM's great services to kind of help me to take global. So those were really my kind of beginnings, was wanting to provide services and then later on products for people that are very abundant within the world. You know, there are millions of people that are affected by diabetes, and there are even more millions that consider themselves immunocompromised. And so I wanted to create services and products specifically with them in mind. So that was my problem that I was working to solve.
Oh, that is great. That is great. And no wonder you are so, you've seen much success because of the line of work you're in. A lot of businesses, they don't, focus on individuals who may have, a disability or who are immunocompromised, because it may not generate the income, if you will, but as you have said, well, you are going to see, people around the world, have need for your product. And that is, I've never heard of a pedicurist, if you will, or a nail tech in the, serving individuals with diabetes. So that is a very niche product. And I know that you will experience much success with that. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
What challenges did you have and how did you overcome them when you started your business?
The challenges were many, but to be more specific to the current, my current state of my business, shifting from being service-based to being a manufacturer and having a tangible product was extremely hard because I am accustomed to being able to talk to my clients, and I truly believe in the power of touch, being able to touch someone, having the permission and the ability to serve them and to make them feel better about their physical being is extremely powerful. And it's really hard to translate that one-on-one eye contact, private conversations that you have that many of us may have with our own independent service providers, right? To go from that to then really only being able to communicate with people through the internet and trying to help them to understand why, for instance, if you are a diabetic or someone that, may have a health reality, that you need to be conscious of products that you put in your body, not just the foods that you eat. And so having different types of conversations and trying to bring awareness about, continuing healthy lifestyles and how understanding everything that you literally put on your body gets absorbed into your bloodstream. And so having those conversations through the internet for me is extremely challenging because I am a one-on-one, eyeball to eyeball kind of person. I like to really have in-depth conversations with people in person. And so that's been a learning curve. So I've had to, kind of hone into younger individuals. Like I've hired over the course of my business many college interns because their pulse is much more on the internet than for me. And so they're able to help me in how to convey my messages. Actually, before this meeting, I had a conversation with one of my interns about, planning in terms of some things for our social media. So that's been a challenge for me. I would say also trying to convey or convince bigger business to do business with smaller business is a challenge, especially if you don't have, the name that other larger businesses may have, or maybe even, competitors or whatnot. So being creative on how to still make a relationship happen, may not be in the methodology that you would have thought that it would happen, but finding ways to compromise to try to make a deal happen, so to speak. So being open-minded, being creative, really thinking outside of the box, and then constantly asking people, especially when I meet new people, constantly asking them, what it is that they do and figuring out, do they maybe have some information that can help me, with this particular challenge that I may have. So going to networking events or even events such that platforms that we're on now where different organizations will host opportunities for you to learn, and then you're able to kind of ask questions. And it may not even be related to what the person is talking about, but you never know who knows what. So those have been some of my solutions to some of the challenges that I've had being in business.
Okay, great. I can relate with relying on or pulling on the younger generation because they do have their tech savvy, they have the know-how. If you just give them your vision, they will run with it. So I know that that has been an added value to your business. And also too, I had a thought as you were talking, when you're talking to your clients and your customers about, maintaining, being healthy, and what you put in your body goes into your bloodstream. That, that's not a conversation that the majority, if you will, would have with a customer who is dealing with that. So you're actually providing them hope and care, that you really care about what they are putting in their bodies, on their bodies and into their bodies. What they consume as well plays a major part. So, and I'm an advocate for that. So I know exactly where you're coming from.
Absolutely.
Yes. What do you know now that you didn't know before you considered exporting?
So the thought of exporting was literally a dream. It's one of those things that's on your, long forecasted goals. It's not something that, in my opinion, was ever something that I could do within the next 5 years. It was more of one of those, once we're established here in the United States, then we can look at going outside of the United States. But when I read the statistic, I believe it's from the SBA website, that 96% of consumers are outside of the United States. That statistic completely blew my mind. But really, it was from the efforts of EXIM's outreach. I was at a conference, a business conference, and in that conference is where I met an EXIM representative, Miss Deborah Figgins, and she introduced herself to me, and we were talking, and I was explaining to her about my brand, and so she was like, "Have you ever thought about exporting your products?" And I was like, "Exporting like where? Like California?" And she's like, "No, internationally. Have you ever thought about, Africa or Asia or, other parts of the world?" And I was like, "No, I never really considered it. I would love to do it. It sounds wonderful, but I never considered it being something available to me, within the short span of time that I met her. I met her about 2 years ago. And so that conversation really opened my mind to, oh, this is something that I could actually work on. And so that was really the beginning of, what I didn't know. I didn't know that it was something that could be tangible for a small business such as myself. I'm a solopreneur. So I do have staff and whatnot, but, all of these things are coming slowly but surely. And so even just the thought of being able to export. And so as I continue doing my research and been going to conferences and talking to different people and figuring out how to make all of this work, I'm doing that in addition to expanding my domestic footprint. So to understand that I didn't have to be already put together domestically or already, this huge success or already a well-known brand here in the United States, and understanding that, I can work in tandem. And so that's what we're doing, is we're working in tandem and continuing to, make our footprint here domestically within the U.S., but then also having conversations externally. So right now we're looking to export to the UAE, and we're going to be going to we're going to be exhibiting at the trade show that they're going to be having there later on this year. So just working in tandem, kind of working on both sides of the world, so to speak, but just the sheer thought of even being able to do it was not something that I thought I could be working on right now. I thought that was something that I could work on in maybe 10 or 20 years.
And that is the beauty, and that's a good segue into what I wanted to say if I didn't mention it earlier. So since I've been in this role, there has not been a product specifically for businesses in underserved communities. We launched a new program, Equity Select Express, the 19th of April. And since we have launched it, we have approved, I would say maybe 6 or 7 applications so far. And I'm really excited and just happy about the program. And businesses such as yours, the structure such as yours, we are seeing more and more interest. And as we continue our outreach efforts, we are seeing an uptick in applications and approvals for the program. So, and like yourself, some businesses, they may not have the brand name or be known here domestically, but they, are garnering interest from abroad, and they're coming to us, and I'm just so excited and happy that we can now say, hey, we have a program that can help you to start exporting. And then we actually work with them, hold their hands through the process, and work with our sister or partner agencies as well if need be. So very excited to hear about that. I'm glad that you are one of the first applicants to be approved, and just looking forward to the growth that you're going to see as a result of leveraging this program. So as I wrap up, I have one last question. What advice would you give for a business who's just starting to export?
I would absolutely recommend that they reach out to, of course, EXIM Bank to start getting information and figuring out how to start there. I would also recommend that they reach out to their state's Department of Commerce, because there are a whole host of resources, including grants, that can help them on their exporting journey. And I would also recommend, it could be through their state representative, but they can also reach out through to commercial services, the U.S. commercial services sector of helping you with figuring out kind of where to go next with resources. So truly, that's been kind of my holy trinity is EXIM, Maryland Department of Commerce, because I'm a Maryland-based business, and then U.S. Commercial Services. Those 3 agencies have assisted me in figuring out, how to continue to navigate and plant my exporting and international boots to the ground. So those would be my recommendations in terms of services, and they could even add on their local small business development center. That's been very integral in my part of my business. I mean, I've had my same small business development center counselor, Mr. Bill Hitty, for the last 17 years. And so, really things started with him, and then it kind of branched out from there of understanding and helping me to figure out what services are available. But I absolutely know that I wouldn't be able to even consider going international without EXIM because of the protections that are in place. It makes me more comfortable in knowing that I can do business, outside of the U.S.
Great. So glad to hear that, because so many businesses don't know that we exist and the programs that we have, and that they can go international. A lot of businesses say, well, I'm too small. That's for large corporations or bigger businesses who have been operating longer than me. That is not true. So it does warrant to give us a call so we can have a deeper conversation about how your business is structured, what your plans are. Maybe we can discuss strategies on how to get you there. So very happy to hear you say that. And also too, I must say, our annual conference is next week, June 6th and 7th at the Washington Hilton Hotel, and Joy is going to be speaking at the conference. So If you don't get to talk to her or reach out to her before then, I encourage you to come to the conference so you can hear more about her export journey and just her business in general. So I thank you again so much, Joy, for being with us today. And now I will turn it back over to Alexis.
Thank you, LaTaunya. Thank you, Alexis.
Thank you very much, LaTaunya. And we're going to move on to learn a little about what the Small Business Administration can do to help with exporting. So David Hincapie from the U.S. Small Business Administration, he is a lender relations specialist and a veteran business development officer. And David, we're going to turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you very much. I have actually a question for the previous panelists the business owner.
For Joy or for LaTaunya?
For Joy.
Absolutely.
Yes.
She's still on the line. Joy, did you have any occasion to, I don't know if it was necessary for your line of business, but the Bureau of Industry and Security, the one that's the agency that's in charge of the export licenses and things like that. Did you have any reason to connect with them?
No, not at this juncture. I have not.
No. Did you even know about them?
No, I was not aware of them.
So you just heard about them right now with me, or did you hear about them before?
No, you bringing them up is the first time that I've heard of them.
Ooh, that's interesting. Okay, so I'm bringing it up because I just discovered, it was like 2 months ago, I was at their annual conference. They have such a generic name, the Bureau of Industry and Security. And I think, well, what the heck is that? You think, is that Department of Defense? What is it? Well, it turns out that's the federal agency that is in charge of certain things regarding exporting, export licenses for certain things and certain procedures. And just like EXIM Bank, they were also at that conference we were participating in a few months ago. A lot of people don't even know they exist, right? And so LaTaunya was saying that people don't even know the EXIM Bank exists and about the programs. And even I in the federal government didn't know that the Bureau of Industry and Security existed, because we don't run into a lot of exporting here at the SBA in this district office of the SBA, right? And this part of DC is very focused, or this district office is very focused on federal contracting. So for the audience, I want to use this as an example of how, because you don't know what you don't know, you have to ask, and you have to be asking questions all the time. So you may not be exporting something that requires an export license, but then again, you don't know. So the important thing is to ask any and all advisors, that anyone who gives you advice, whether it's a person from the federal government, whether it's one of the SBA resource partners, a SBDC advisor, or a SCORE mentor, whether you're going to the Apex accelerators, those are the federal contracting ones, so you may not be asking them about it. But if you are in contracting, always ask questions. Keep asking questions so that you know about it. You don't find out about it later, because there's a lot of stories about people getting involved in exporting and finding out at the last minute, wait, I can't do this, or I can do it, but it's going to take me another 6 months because I got to deal with something administrative regarding the Bureau of Industry and Security and exporting. So a lesson there. I didn't hear about it, and I work in the federal government until 2 months ago. And our entrepreneur here, she didn't hear about it until I mentioned it 2 minutes ago. So there's always stuff out there to learn. Keep asking questions. Now, about SBA. So the SBA has export trade finance, and we have 3 core finance programs, international trade finance programs for small business exporters and for export transactions. We have the Export Express loan program, and that's for guaranteeing smaller revolving lines of credit for a business or term loans for a small business concern that wants to develop exporting, just as Joe did. It has a lot of the features of the SBA Express loan that's for domestic use. The approval process is faster, the dollar amount is smaller, than the standard, say, 7A loan, which is $5 million. So it's going to be smaller than that. But it has a higher guarantee. And so the higher guarantee to the bank, meaning the SBA guarantees the loan to the bank, where like in personal finance, the SBA is like a co-signer. If the borrower doesn't pay, then we will pay the bank. Normally, an SBA guarantee is 75%, but for this, it can go up to 90%. Then we have the Export Working Capital Program, right? And the export, it's exactly what it says in the name, right? And these are short-term working capital loans that some of our participating lenders use for small business exporters. The main difference is that it's a larger amount, and so it takes a little bit longer to get, it doesn't take 6 months, but it takes a little bit longer than getting the Export Express credit line or loan program. The Export Express, it's supposed to happen in a week to 2 weeks, but that's if you have a very organized business, a very organized borrower, you have all your financial statements, you're ready to go, and you are Johnny on the spot with the information. Then the Export Express program could be useful to you because things can happen quickly. The Export Working Capital Program takes a little bit longer because it's a little bit larger dollar amounts. All right, the third one is the International Trade Loan Program, right? And we guarantee these loans to help improve the competitiveness of small businesses that are either exporters now or developing new export markets. And so those are the three basic programs. Now, one of the details about this that I want to bring up is that you can also use this for indirect exporting. So this is where the borrower's direct customer, so let's say you have a company, your direct customer is going to be exporting the stuff they buy from you. So in other words, you're like a supplier, you're a vendor to an exporter. So you are also eligible for the export trade finance programs. Right? Let me say that again. If you are a supplier or vendor to an exporter, you are eligible for the export trade finance programs because you're an indirect exporter. That means you, the borrower, have a customer, and whatever your customer is buying from you, they're going to be exporting the products or services that they buy from you. Okay, so that's a very important detail. Right? This applies to people who are involved in exporting indirectly in this way. Now, so those are the three programs. There's not much else to say, unless we know the particular details of your business, right? What's your business? How long have you been in business? Have you been profitable? What is your financial situation, etc. So I can't get into any of that kind of sort of loan counseling right now, but I want you to know that these exist. Okay, more important than that though, is getting yourself organized to get this kind of export trade finance, this kind of credit. And what I mean by getting organized is what I mentioned earlier with the Export Express. Meaning, do you have your at least compiled financial statements from the last 3 years? Depending on the size of the loan and how big your company is, they might require different other financial statements with more detail. But let's just say, do you at least, just so you can have a preliminary conversation with one of the lenders, do you have your compiled financial statements for the last 3 years? Do you have your taxes for the last 3 years? Is that ready to go? When a lender asks you for this information, do you have it ready to go? The other thing is simply, if you're a newer business, have you been profitable in the last couple of years? Because no SBA guaranteed lender is going to do any kind of credit or loan for a company that has had losses in the last year, certainly in the last year, but if it's in the last 2 or 3 years, they're not going to do it. So that's another thing. That is all part of the preparation for being able to get this credit, right? Whether it's a revolving line of credit, a business line of credit, AKA, or whether it's a term loan. Are you organized and prepared to receive this kind of financing? And the way you get organized and prepared is by going to the SBA resource partners. There's the small business development centers, there's the women's business centers, there's the veteran business outreach centers. All of them are essentially business advising centers. You can go talk to them for free, talk to a business advisor, and you ask, when you go and connect with them, you say, is there an advisor here who has worked with companies that are doing exporting? If so, I would like to talk to that person. That's how you go get that specific help. And we also have the SCORE business mentors. Those are a little bit different because the mentors are all former business owners. They're retired business owners. So they're people like you, right? Or people like you will be the next 20, 25, or 30 years if you're in business that long, right? They have all that knowledge. Some of them may have been exporters. When you get in touch with the SCORE chapter around here, the DC Metro Area SCORE chapter, you tell them specifically, I am going to start exporting. I'm going to be developing these markets for myself. Do you have a mentor I can talk to about this specific thing? Okay. Now, going back to that Bureau of Industry and Security, they're very similar to EXIM Bank in having advisors. There's people there who you can talk to for free. They work for the federal government in that agency that's in charge of this. You can get in touch with them. So they're just like LaTaunya, and you can call her up. She can advise you. She can tell you what's going on. I'm the same way when it comes to the SBA programs. You can call me up. You can send me an email. We can talk, and we can get into more detail about this. So that's the overall thing. The SBA has these three programs: Export Express Loan Program, Export Working Capital Program, International Trade Loan Program. One of these might be good for you. If you want to find out more, get in touch with me directly, and that's what I'm here to do, is to help you. And if there's any questions now, I can take them.
Thank you, everybody, for this really informative presentation. We do have some questions, but we also probably have time to answer other ones. So while I am starting on the questions, if anyone has any in the audience that you haven't yet asked, please go ahead again and put them in the chat box so that we can ask our panelists. So I don't know if Joy and LaTaunya, you want to come back on camera so that we can see you. But Joy, we have a couple for you to start with. The first one, Joy, is, did you have to take into account any cultural considerations when you were thinking about your products?
So domestically, I didn't take into account any cultural considerations. I just took into account the thought process when it comes to ingredients, and because I formulated my line. So I took into account, based on my training, what ingredients were ideal and not ideal for people that have diabetes, whether it's type 1 or type 2. I took into account commonly known products. For example, body scrubs. 99% of body scrubs are made with salt and sugar grains. Diabetics especially should not use salt and sugar-based scrubs because the crystals of those grains can cause micro tears or micro cuts into the skin. And so I made my body scrub with poppy seeds. So I took into account those sorts of things. Now, internationally, I did create an international business plan. I utilized a wonderful resource. I took a SBDC class on exporting last year, and through that, I was able to connect with one of the facilitators of that program. They actually connected me with a professor at George Washington University, and so the international business students for that for last semester, they utilized my business as their class project, and so they helped me in creating my business plan. And so in that regard, we did take into consideration cultural norms, being that once we figured out where we wanted to export, because I wanted to export in a few countries in Africa, I was interested in the Caribbean and then the UAE. In my mind, I was going to do the UAE last, but the UAE, when we looked at all of the metrics, the ease of doing business, the likability of US-based businesses, and diabetes being extremely high within that GCC region. Once we took all of that into account and focused on the UAE, then from there, in figuring out which products to come out with and what we could do. Like, for instance, poppy seeds in the GCC region are forbidden. So I have to formulate a new product for that region of the world because I cannot sell it there, whereas here it's fine. So those are some of the things that I did take into account internationally. There's a lot of modesty there in the UAE, and so we wanted to figure out which product would do the best coming out with first, especially knowing that there's a modest population. So those are the things that we considered.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly what the questioner was asking about, because they had a follow-up which you have answered, which was around, did you have to change your products to meet some of the either cultural or local regulations? So I think you touched on that one. So I think that's exactly what they were looking for. And then just another question is, you also got some great advice. Have you also had to, someone asked, did you have to get a specialist attorney or an accountant, or have you changed any of those advisors when you're thinking about exporting?
So I went to a exporting conference in Miami this past October that I believe was hosted by U.S. Commercial Services. And so I learned quite a bit about, accounting, and I have a wonderful CPA that I use in Maryland, and they're very well versed in the contracting side of, U.S. government business, because a part of my business has worked on, doing that as well. And I have their information. So if I feel like my CPA isn't able to answer some of the questions that I think need to be answered, or if I'm not comfortable, then I do have some resources in that regard based on the people that spoke. I have interviewed 2 attorneys that are more versed in international business. The attorney that I have a few attorneys here domestically, but none of them are international. That's not their purview. And so I have interviewed a few so that when the time comes that I need them, I can kind of, rehash a conversation. So I think it would be in your best interest to absolutely have conversations with multiple professionals, and starting with the ones that you already do business with. And then if they say, well, that's not my area, you may not want your business to be the one where they figure it out. So it may be in your best interest to consider someone that's more of a SME in dealing with international business and exporting. So I have not made any changes yet, but when and if the time comes up that I think I need to, I do have a few resources that I can reach out to pretty immediately to see, what the next steps need to be.
Excellent, thank you.
Can I add something here? Do you have time? I wanted to just highlight something she said. She talked to an SBDC advisor. You took a class through an SBDC, right, Joe?
Yes, I did. The exporting class.
How long? And what SBDC did you do this with?
So I did this one through George Mason. I usually use the SBDC in Maryland, but I had to use the one in Virginia because Maryland didn't have an upcoming class. Right. And that's an important point, particularly in this area here. So in the DC metro area, we're in this weird space where it's actually 3 jurisdictions, right? It's Maryland, the DMV is parts of Maryland, District of Columbia, and Virginia. And so your business may be in Maryland, but there's no availability. Or maybe they just don't have the expertise that you need or whatever. So you go over to Virginia, or vice versa. Maybe you're in Virginia and there's no one there who can help you. So you go to the one in Maryland, or you go to the one in DC. So you shouldn't stop looking
right? And that story of how you took that class with the SBDC advisor, and then they connected you with some professor, and then the project and everything. That's exactly how we want this kind of free advice to work. And now sometimes the classes have a nominal cost. It might be a little bit of money, but it shouldn't be prohibitive. Did that class cost money, or was it a free class?
No, that class cost money. It was not a free class,
Okay.
but
So
but when you iron out
one
all
of the
the
ones
other
that had
free
a cost
advice,
to it.
yes, but when you iron out
Yeah.
all the other free advice that I've gotten over the years, it was well worth it. But there was a cost associated with that class.
Yeah.
But it was
Okay.
it was
So you have a cost
actually
for
a
a class.
recertification class.
Ah, okay. So you have a cost for a class, but yeah, you amortize it across all of the advice that you get and all of the guidance that you get over a period of 1 or 2 years, and it ends up being nothing, right? It ends up being, if you were divided by the cost of the class by the number of hours that you actually talk to an advisor, it might end up being like you paid $5 an hour, depending on how often you talk to the advisor. So that's how it's meant to work, and I'm really glad that worked for you in that way.
And I have a question, David.
Mm-hmm.
The STEP grant, the State Trade Expansion Program, can those grants be used to pay for classes or certifications as well? I know that they are used if you have to update your website to the country you're exporting to and other export activities, but does the STEP grant cover those certifications and classes too that are needed to export?
Well, STEP grants are state level. So it depends on what the state says you can do it.
Okay, gotcha.
With the grant money. So your state, Maryland may do something, Virginia may do something slightly different.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't have any expertise on the particular ones because there's 50 states, and I'll get I have time to learn about each one. But as far as the use of proceeds from the SBA programs, well, you can use the proceeds for a business related expense. Right. There are some rules. I can't get into them now. It's a big, long list of rules, and we can talk about it in detail if you want to.
Okay. Thank you.
But I could broadly say, okay, so for example, the Export Working Capital Program, right? Loan proceeds, what can you use it for? You could use it to acquire inventory or for export, or stuff that you're going to use to manufacture goods for export, right? So Joe could use it for the Export Working Capital loan. She could use it to buy the ingredients for the stuff that she makes. You could pay manufacturing costs if you're not going to manufacture them yourself, but you're going to contract with somebody to build them for you. You can buy goods or services for the export directly. You can even use it to support a standby letter of credit related to export transactions. If you don't know what that means, then you're probably at the very beginning of your exporting process, journey. But if you do know what that means, then now Export Working Capital programs loans can be used for supporting a standby letter of credit. So there you go. You could use it for foreign accounts receivable and inventory financing, etc. So there's a list of stuff that you could use the loan proceeds for. We can talk about it in more detail if anyone wants to get in touch.
Thank you. So another question, and this could be for any of the panel, but what are some of the sort of common mistakes you see, and how can small businesses avoid them when they're looking to start exporting?
Wait, say that again?
Yes, what are some of the common mistakes you see when small businesses think about exporting, and any strategies so people can avoid making them?
I think LaTaunya probably sees this more than I do, more frequently. So you're probably best equipped to answer this question. Although I have seen some things, but I think she sees it more frequently.
Well, the two things that I can think of off the top of my head, and I advise businesses to check our country limitation schedule to see what cover, or in fact, EXIM is providing support in a particular country. Because you may, have a want or be determined to export to a specific country, but, we're not open there. So that's the first step in the process. And then to knowing the business landscape in a particular country. That's why I highly recommend reaching out to the U.S. Commercial Service or either the embassy in a particular country, because they have knowledge of the bad actors, if you will, in a specific country. So those are the two mistakes that that people tend to make. And I often tell them, that's the first thing to see if we are providing cover or support in a particular country.
Yeah, I want to reinforce that by saying, broadly speaking, it's going in blindly because you heard something from someone. So don't take your business advice from social media. All right, so get in touch with the actual agencies that are involved in the administrative aspect of your business. That means talking to the experts at EXIM Bank, maybe calling somebody from the SBA to find out about our international trade finance programs, talking to the Bureau of Industry and Security about export licenses that you might need. There's all this preparatory work you have to do, and then you have to learn about your market, your potential market in that country. This might be expensive in the beginning, but it might be worth it. You're gonna have to judge it. Like going on one of these trade trips, right, that are organized by different associations. For example, I know the Prince George's Economic Development, PGEDC, Economic Development Corporation, they're really focused on this, and they do these trade trips to, for example, Africa. I don't know which countries in Africa. Africa is enormous, but they take them there. And so if you can participate in one of those because you've done preliminary research and then actually go there, then you can learn a little bit more, and you won't go in so blind. You're less likely to make any kind of costly mistakes.
Right, and to add what you shared, David, so I do know that the PG Economic Development Agency that you mentioned, they are going, I believe, in August to some part of Asia on a trade mission. And also, I do know that STEP grant funds can be used to reimburse trade mission cost.
Oh, well, there you go. This is
Yes.
great. I didn't know that. That's
Yes.
fantastic. There you go. It'll reimburse. You got to pay out of pocket in the beginning, but then you can get the money back.
That is correct. That is correct.
That's
Yes,
fantastic.
you have to pay up front, but they will reimburse. So just hold on to all of your receipts. I think there's a time period once the trade mission is over that you submit all the documentation and your receipts, and you will get reimbursed for that. Also, too, you can use STEP grant funds to pay any premium, any insurance premiums as well, EXIM Bank insurance premium.
Well, there you go.
Yes.
I learned something today. That's good to know.
And Joy, I see you wanted to add something.
Yes, I'm actually, to piggyback off of LaTaunya, I'm using the STEP grant to help reimburse some of the costs for our exhibition in Dubai later this year. So I know in speaking with the Maryland Department of Commerce with my person there, that I'm able to utilize that. So the trip is more than the grant, but the grant, because it's more than, I'll be able to get the full reimbursement of whatever the maximum is for that particular grant. So it can be used for exhibit if you're going to exhibit at any industry-specific trade shows as well.
Excellent, thank you. And then David, following up, you were
Mhm.
saying around the importance of doing your research. Does SBA have any particular resources that help people look at like international market research, or any suggestions of where people might find those resources?
The best place to start is with the SBA resource partners, is with what we generically call the Small Business Development Centers, the Women's Business Centers, the Veteran Business Outreach Centers. They're all of the same type. They're business advisors, but from the name, you can guess that they're slightly different audiences. Although the Women's Business Centers serve everybody, they're partly federally funded, so they can't discriminate. It's just that most of the advisors are women. And then there's the Veteran Business Outreach Centers. And then there's the SCORE mentors that are qualitatively different, as I said, because they are retired business owners. That's different than the business advisors Some of them are business owners, some of them are retired business owners, and some of them are just experts in a particular thing. Maybe they were involved in exporting. They were maybe a manager for a company that did a lot of exporting, and then they become SBDC advisors. That could happen as well. So I would say start there. Now, we do have the Office of International Trade, and I can connect you with someone there if you want to talk to someone there about in more detail about our programs. But I'd say start with the resource partners and see what you can get there so that you can have a good story like Joe's. She went to an SBDC advisor, took a class, got other advice. You know, that's a success story that I love hearing. I didn't know it, and that's exactly how it's supposed to work.
Wonderful, thank you. And LaTaunya, anything else you would add on where people might get additional resources? Is that something that you provide at EXIM or?
Yes, so we often refer businesses to other resources if they're not quite ready for EXIM. But again, because of the new product that was launched last month, you know, everybody, well, not everybody, but a large majority of businesses that are coming to us, they have been applying and they're either in the underwriting process as we speak, or they have been approved. So that's why I'm just elated about this program and looking forward to the fruit that we're going to see as a result of it. But to answer the question, yes, we do, or we have made referrals to, say, the SBDCs or the SBA or the Department of Commerce, just so businesses can make those connections and get further guidance into their export activities. Businesses that sometimes come to us, they don't have an export business plan. And I know these small business development centers assist with that. Just like you need a business plan to access any grants or funding for your business, the same is true for your export activities. You need an export business plan, and the SBDCs are instrumental and do an excellent job in helping businesses to develop those plans.
Excellent, thank you. And then I know we did a webinar that people can access or will be able to access on our website where you talk more about the services, but I don't know if you could just do like a quick overview, like a recap of all the things that EXIM does provide for those who weren't on that last webinar.
Sure. So EXIM is the export credit agency for the United States. Most countries have an export credit agency, or ECA, as they're more commonly known as. And so they support businesses in their respective countries in their export activities. And that is what EXIM Bank of the US does for businesses here. And we have a few programs in which we do that, but I'll just mention the two main ones. So we have a working capital loan guarantee program. That is a guarantee that we provide lenders who actually finance the export loan. And proceeds from these loans can be used to purchase raw materials that you need to manufacture or make your product, purchase finished products that you may be exporting, any labor or overhead fees or costs associated with the export transaction. And so that's what the working capital loan guarantee is. Lenders are more comfortable with financing export loans when they know that they have the guarantee from EXIM Bank. Now, again, the criteria are you must have at least 1 year of business operations, have a positive net worth, and a purchase order or a contract. Those are our requirements. You still would need to meet the requirements of whatever lender you choose to work with. Those lenders are found on our website. If you find that your lender that you have a current relationship with is not on our website, your lender can apply directly with us, and then we will underwrite the loan in-house at EXIM. So that's the working capital program. And of
I,
course,
I have a, no,
I'm
go
sorry.
ahead.
No, go
No,
ahead.
I'll wait. I'll wait. Well, I have a
Okay.
question because your 12-month requirement in business is the same as ours. And so our program, the Export Working Capital program from the SBA, is very similar to yours. I suspect, though, the major difference is going to be in the maximum loan amount. What is the maximum amount in the EXIM Banks program?
That is correct. We don't have a maximum loan amount. I do know that
Ah,
SBA is 5 million.
yes. So there
Yes,
you go. So it could be that if you are very new to this and you're a smaller company, maybe the SBA program is the one for you. It's a maximum 5 million, up to 90% guarantee on certain things. And as you grow, you might be moving on to the EXIM Bank for some of the larger ones. Or not. Maybe you go directly to EXIM Bank. But the point is, you should know that there's two, investigate both, and use the one that's best for your business.
that is correct. That is correct. Now, I don't know if a lender who is not part of our delegated network can submit directly to SBA. I know that that is the case with EXIM, which we often, run into, a lender. Most of our lenders are the larger banks, in the game, such as Wells, BO, Bank of America, Huntington, but we do have some lenders that have an appetite for the smaller loan amounts, just as you alluded to. A small business may not need above 5 million. And if that is the case, then the lender that the exporter has a banking relationship with can come to us directly and submit application for the working capital loan. I don't know if that is the case for SBA.
It
And
is.
so
It is, Brett.
our second program is the trade credit insurance, which I know SBA does not offer. It is an insurance on the receivables, 95% in the event the foreign buyer does not pay due to political or commercial risk. And some examples of those risks are if unrest or war develops in a country, if your buyer loses their import license, if there's fraud on the part of your buyer. Those are some examples where the EXIM insurance policy covers you in the event of non-payment by your buyer. And so those are the two primary ones that we have. Yes, David?
So the thing about the lenders as part of the network is very similar to the SBA. And with SBA guarantees, any bank can apply for an SBA guaranteed loan. They can do it. It's just that when one of our preferred lenders, in other words, one of the lenders that has what we call delegated authority, that means they've demonstrated experience in using our programs. So they can do all the work about taking the application, doing the credit analysis, and making the decision, and then sending it to us. Because they are a preferred lender, then that means our review of their work is pretty fast because we trust them. That's why it's called delegated authority. We delegate the authority to approve the loan to them. Now, any bank that doesn't have delegated authority could still use it. It's just that they don't. They're not going to bother. If it's too much, it takes a little bit longer. And usually, if a bank isn't interested in this, they're not going to bother getting the delegated authority. So in practice, what happens is almost every bank that submits this for a guarantee from us is a bank that happens to be a preferred lender.
Okay. Well,
I mean, probably your bank is.
Yeah, and I have seen businesses come to us and they have a banking relationship already with someone and they're not a delegated lender. So I just want to maybe some people, they feel defeated or, after they talk to a delegated lender, they aren't getting positive results. So we do inform businesses that if they have a banking relationship who is not a delegated lender of ours, they can still submit application directly with us.
Excellent, thank you. So that takes us to the end of the questions that we've had. I just want to really thank Joy, LaTaunya and David. Joy, we did put your website in the chat, and we'll also be sending out all the links in a follow-up email. I think it's such an important thing you're doing. I have family members with diabetes and receiving other treatments, and I know it's such a big issue. So hopefully you will expand across globally even further. My family are in the UK, and I know they would benefit from your product. So thank you so much for sharing with it today.
Certified. Yeah, I would.
And thank you, David, and thank you again, LaTaunya, for all your wonderful advice. We'll be sharing the contact information. Again, if you didn't get a chance to note it down during the presentation, you'll be getting an email where you'll get the chat links as well as the email and contact information. So with that, we just have a few other things to tell you about. Our next webinar is taking place on June the 5th from 2 to 4 p.m. It's around cultural competency with the DC Mayor's Office of Deaf, Deafblind and Hard of Hearing. And it's going to be a wonderful presentation that really looks at, how we can support and work and be effective in our communication. We also have our Small Business National Convening coming up. This will be our third one. Hopefully some of you attended our previous ones. It's taking place on November the 20th and 21st, 2024. It is completely virtual. We'll be sending out more information in the coming weeks. But if you want a taster, you can go to our website and see recordings from our 2022 and 2023 convening. It's a great chance to meet other business owners, to network and to really learn and think about how you want to start and grow your business. There's even a session from 2022 on exporting that also has some other resources that you might find of interest. And then if you're thinking about, I love all of this, but I want to get more resources, on our website, we have a lot to help you think about starting, building. So you can visit our website at www.disabilitysmallbusiness.org. We also have a streaming TV channel that has some original content where, again, entrepreneurs with disabilities are sharing their business journeys and some of the successes they've had. And that can be found at disabilityowned.com. We are a partner with Verizon Small Business Digital Ready, and they actually provide a whole host of resources. They have self-paced training, learning modules. They are short videos with toolkits. You can also do an Ask the Expert, where you can go and have your questions answered in live events. They have mentoring, they have coaching. It's all free. You don't have to be a Verizon customer, but it's an amazing open resource that can really sort of help you think about your business. And actually at the moment, up until June 28th, they do have a $10,000 grant that you can apply for. You do need to have completed either 2 courses or done 2 live events, but there's still plenty of time for you to do that if you sign up. Hopefully you're already on our mailing list because you're here today, but if not, we'll put in the chat and in the email that goes out the link to join our mailing list so you can keep in touch with everything that we're doing. So you get to know us. Nikki Powers is our director. Ruth Chavis is our small business community navigator. I'm Caroline Bolath, the small business specialist. And then we have our wonderful Lexi Jones, our project coordinator, who has been sending you out and will send out information about this webinar. And then finally, we would love for you to become a NDI Equity Ally. You can find out all about it by scanning this QR code or going to our website. But again, we will include that in the links that we're sending to you so you can find out more information about that. But with that, I just want to thank you all again for spending your time with us this afternoon. Thanks to our wonderful speakers for sharing their expertise. And hopefully we'll see you again at future webinars. Until then, have a great rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great afternoon, everyone.
Bye.